Welcome back to the Changemaker podcast. I'm your host, Deke Copenhaver. My guest today is my dear friend, Mayor Garnett Johnson. Garnett Johnson is the 85th mayor of the city of Augusta and the president and owner of Augusta Office Solutions and Modern Business Workplace Solutions. With locations in Augusta and Savannah, the company supports a national customer base across all sectors, including private, education, government, and healthcare. Garnett is engaged civically. He serves on numerous boards, among them the Augusta Metro Chamber of Commerce, where he formerly served as chairman of the board. He is also a member of the Augusta Exchange Club, as we both are, a passionate supporter of the mission of the American Heart Association. Garnett is a member of the executive leadership team and past chairman of the American Heart Association's Augusta CSRA Heart Ball. Garnett is a graduate of Augusta University's Hull College of Business, where he earned a Bachelor of Business Administration degree with a concentration in business management. He is also a member of the Beta Gamma Sigma International Business Honor Society. He's an Augusta native, married to my dear friend, Tony Seals Johnson. They have two daughters, Caitlin and Lauren, and they're members of Good Shepherd Baptist Church. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mayor Garnett Johnson.
Welcome to the Changemaker podcast, hosted by Deke Copenhaver. Deke is the author of The Changemaker, a Forbes publishing book that has reached #1 on Amazon on multiple occasions and in multiple categories like management skills and total quality management. During this podcast, Deke interviews exceptional change-making leaders. Deke currently operates Copenhaver Consulting, where he helps local governments and other public organizations maximize their potential. He's also a sought-after public speaker. We hope that the Changemaker has an impact on you today and that you find takeaways that make you a better leader in your life. Now, here's Deke.
Man, so glad to have you on.
You know, it's really a pleasure. You know, every time I hear that bio read, sometimes I smile and never imagine accomplishing some of the things I've accomplished. So excited to be here with you.
You know, and that's your story of success is a wonderful, American success story.
Yes.
So for our listeners and viewers, tell them a little bit about, you came from literally humble beginnings.
You know, I did. I was the son of a teenage mother. Both my parents were teenagers when I was born. Didn't have much. Grew up down in East Augusta, where still today it is a challenging area as it relates to educational opportunities for advancement. People often say the crime is still high in that area, but I tend to think that it's getting better.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm from. Excited to be from there. Still have a lot of relatives that live there, and that's home.
Well, so you grew up in humble beginnings, but you've gone on to be a very successful business owner. And it's tremendous how you've been able to achieve that success. Yeah,
I've had some great folks around me. I had some great mentors along the way, as well as some great teachers. When my mother, a lot of people talk about school choice now in the Richmond County school system. Back in the time when there was no school choice, my mother made the decision to send me to school out of zone to Butler. And I attribute that with the change in my life in that I was hanging with the wrong crowd. She recognized that, and it showed me a different path. And I went kicking and screaming, didn't understand it at the time. But it was the best decision for me that she made, and I'm proud that she made it. I'm glad that she made it because it showed me the opportunities that were available to me outside of just perhaps graduating from high school. There are a lot of other things that I could accomplish. So,
well, and Garnett, you and I have discussed. I think you and I are both politically independent, and the nice thing in Georgia is that all local elections are nonpartisan. And when we see the division in politically in our nation, the toxic polarization, I think that that's very dangerous. I think that what people want to see, and we'll get into this, but is people that, are not cleaving to the extremes of either party. They want statesmen, which is what I believe you are.
Yeah, I'm excited to serve in a nonpartisan role. All Georgia municipal elections are. It gives me the advantage of working with, regardless of who's elected at our capital in Atlanta or who's elected in Washington. It gives me the opportunity to advocate 100% for Augusta, Georgia in this region. And I'm excited about that. It gives me joy to have a great relationship with a Republican governor, Brian Kemp, who I consider a friend. Also have a strong relationship with the Biden-Harris administration and two Democratic U.S. senators, Also, Rick Allen, who's our congressman for the 12th Congressional District. As you know, he's a member of our Exchange Club.
Yeah.
He's a great friend. So I love the role in which I serve. Being nonpartisan, it allows me to work on both sides. And that's who I am, a business owner. You know, you work on both sides for the greater good, not only of your business and those who work with you and for you, but I get the opportunity to do that for the city of Augusta.
Well, and that's one thing. I wrote a column for the Fulcrum recently, but saying I don't see Georgia being purple, if you want to call it that, as a bad thing. We've got a Republican governor, primarily Republican state legislature, 2 Democrat senators, you know, and then a number of Republican congresspeople and everything. I'm like, that just shows that we're a diverse state, and I almost think that's where the nation, in my opinion, is going. It's going to get more and more purple, except, I mean, it concerns me, the redistricting and districting, you know, safe districts. I think that's helped lead to the polarization that we're witnessing.
You know, I agree. You know, I've always been a person that, you know, even though regardless of how you identify, you always look at the candidates and their strengths and what they can bring to the area and how they can transform lives in the districts and areas in which they represent. And that's who I've always been. You know, I tell everybody all the time, I'm not always Republican on everything, nor am I always Democrat on everything.
No.
You know, and I think as Americans, as we perhaps try to move away from that polarization, I think it'll benefit us.
Well, and I think, you know, I've said often on this show that I view America and every other country as sort of a bell curve, that the majority of people, you might be a little bit politically center left, center right. The majority of people are in the middle of the bell curve. But unfortunately, what we see in the mainstream media is really the extremes of either party. When most people I know, I mean, they're like us. It's like, okay, I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm more a little bit fiscally conservative and more a little bit socially liberal. So it's kind of, we've got this voiceless majority to a degree politically in the United States.
You're right. And, you know, unfortunately, the partisans that operate on the opposite ends of the spectrum, either far right or far left, tend to be the voices that's getting the most, you know, attention. And you're right. The folks that tend to stand in the center, they're the quiet majority. So I would agree with that assessment.
Well, and I want to get into this because, you know, I mean, I'm all about democracy. And, you know, I survived cancer last year, and I believe that God brought me through that and gave me back my voice for a reason to speak out. But I tell people, I kind of sometimes feel like now that I've been given back my voice, I'm a voice for the voiceless. But here in Augusta, Georgia, you know, when 62% of Americans in a recent poll are concerned with the survival of our democracy, and it's on either side, it's for different reasons. But here in Augusta, Georgia, we have a ballot referendum initiative on May 21st, but to give the mayor a full vote on any matter to come before our local governing body. And I'll give a little history, and then I want to get your input on this. So Augusta, Richmond County, for our listeners and viewers that are outside the area and all over the world, frankly, is a consolidated government. We consolidated in 1996. So our charter, I've just come to learn recently, was put together in an hour and a half. The foundational document of our government for 28 years was put together in an hour and a half. But the document, the charter, gave the mayor a right to only vote in the event of a tie. So we have 10 elected commissioners, but in the past 28 years, it's become common practice for commissioners, not for any valid conflict of interest, to simply abstain or leave the room. So, and this is a battle for democracy, though the mayor is the only elected official within our governing body that's elected at large by the entirety of our citizenry. So give me your take. I'm like, we have a chance to vote, to give the mayor a full vote, and to really make Augusta's government. I've said, I can't fix Washington. We can start to fix Augusta.
That's right.
By making us more of a representative democracy.
I totally agree with you. And I tell everybody how we got here. I was elected on June 21st, 2022. As you know, our municipal elections is a mid-cycle. primary elections in May and runoff in June. So I was fortunate to make the runoff with another candidate. On June 22nd, my wife and I were waking up, getting prepared to remove our signs, in which we made a pledge to do. And later that morning, we got a call from a sitting commissioner to congratulate me on our win. And he just wanted to make a statement that make it clear that there was no way in his opinion that he was going to allow the mayor to vote. He said, I'm going to congratulate you, but I'm going to let you know we're never going to allow you to vote. I've never let a mayor vote. And that's where we're going to stand. And I saw that initially. I laughed about it, and I thought it was, a joke, but I realized that he's held firm to that. No single commissioner elected to a district should not prevent a mayor from voting. So him holding firm to that when I started my tenure as mayor, I took an action to where I went to the Georgia our Augusta legislative delegation to see what changes could be made. And I think it was a bold step, but a needed step, in that you're right. Our charter that was put together in haste has not had the opportunity to be visited since its inception. And the creators of that charter clearly stated that there were some flaws that needed to be fixed. So I took it upon myself to ask that legislation be introduced. We were fortunate that it was passed through the House and the Senate. The governor signed it. I hated that it became such a partisan issue, but I think it was the right issue.
I totally agree with you, and I applaud you for doing that. So, I was elected when I was 38 years old, and it took so much time and effort to get things worked through, because oftentimes major projects like our convention center, like our judicial center, our library, were held up due to that abstention issue. So, and just for our listeners, this is, once again, this should make national news, because when we're concerned with the survival of our democracy, I would say that local governments, local people are empowered, that you can make a difference at the local level. But I think people are incredulous at this, local people, when I tell them the commissioner that you're referencing was elected in 2019 in a special election with 496 votes.
That's correct.
And ran the following year unopposed. So in a city of 201,000 people, somebody that was put in that seat with 496 votes can literally hold our local government hostage.
Not only did he receive 496 votes, but I think his second place finisher received somewhere around 300 votes. So there was a swing of about 100 and some odd votes. But you're right. And I think that's unfair that a district commissioner can deny and slow progress for our city. And that was the argument that I made to the entire legislative delegation. And I think that's the reason why the bill was introduced by two great Augustans who represent this area. And we're proud to have gotten it passed.
Well, and you and I had the opportunity to address the Black Baptist Ministers group a couple weeks back. But I made the point that my concern is, and you've heard the term, the tyranny of the minority. So we saw that play out in Congress last fall, right? So I had the opportunity to speak for the National Governors Association in New Hampshire. So they have a program called Disagree Better, headed up by Governor Spencer Cox out of Utah. But it's getting Democrat and Republican governors or mayors and governors to do PSAs saying, look, we don't agree politically on everything, but we do agree that we need to work across party lines to solve the big problems facing our nation. So in New Hampshire, there are 500 bridging organizations nationally. There are some that are faith-based, the majority are secular, but doing unbelievable work across this country. So there are 300 and something people in New Hampshire, and I'm like, this is what America wants. We starts with us, the national nonprofit that I work with. We did a study with Dartmouth that showed 75% of the American people want to see Congress work together in bipartisan fashion to solve our big picture issues. And so I see that, and I'm like, this is hundreds of people from all different parties, all walks of life. This is what America wants to see. But the politicians in Washington, to the extremes, just don't seem to get that and seem to be very out of touch with the American people.
I'd agree with you. And, it's disheartening to see. I was fortunate to be invited to the State of the Union address by the Biden administration and the First Lady, as a guest of the First Lady. And I'm just sitting there observing, in my entire life, I've always watched that the State of the Union with my grandparents. I recall, and just seeing all the pageantry behind it and the formalness of it, and it's amazing to see how the different parties react to the speech. The Republicans sit there stoic and not moving, and the Democrats are clapping. It wasn't often that the president said something that got everybody's attention where everyone was in agreement. But I agree with you that we need to work towards finding common ground to move this country forward. Whether it's at a state or a federal level. How do you do that? I don't know. But I think it starts by having local grassroots conversations like this.
I totally agree. So I'm going to speak to the tyranny of the minority one more time, and then we're going to talk about what we're working on locally. Okay. But after I was in New Hampshire to see that and thinking, this is what America wants, we had the debacle in Congress where the Speaker of the House was run out of that office for the first time, voted out for the first time in America's history. So the individual who masterminded that was Matt Gaetz, right?
Yes.
So I tell people, and I did in this piece that I did for the Fulcrum, he was elected in 2022 by 67% of the by a 67% win in his district. I believe it's District 1 in Florida.
Florida, that's correct.
But I looked up the whole population and the votes that he got. So that's impressive, 67%. That represented only 25% of the total population of that district. So it's not. It looks like an overwhelming majority, but when you look at it, and that, how many people that really like the guy that live in that district, but I extrapolated it to America's population, and it's like 0.0001% or something to that effect. Right. But I'm like, that guy with no seniority in Congress could literally grind the workings of our federal government to a halt by that. And that is not, to me, representative democracy either.
It isn't. But, people always say that, voting matters. Unfortunately, even in this country and presidential elections, you look at the amount of people, the number of people that don't vote, it's just unbelievable. Especially at the grassroots level. We had a school board race where, school board race for District 6 where I think less than 500 people participated in a 25,000 voter population. So that just tells you how disengaged people are, either disengaged or misinformed. I think we need to do a better job of that. Every election matters, not just the national elections. When it's time to vote for president or governor, these grassroots elections really matter as it relates to everything from special local option sales tax to building a new arena. Getting the voters engaged in their process and their government, I think, is greatly beneficial.
Well, and we have an opportunity here locally on May 21st to really change the trajectory of Augusta's government by making it more of a representative democracy by giving the mayor a vote. But I am so proud. So we had a press conference last week where you, myself, former Mayor Bob Young, and former Mayor Hardy Davis stood together in solidarity. And that represents over 25 years of service in the mayor's office. Democrat, Republican, you and I are independents, black and white.
That's right.
That is what America wants to see, that we can all come together. We don't always agree politically, but we can agree to come together and stand in solidarity to do what's in the best interest of the vast majority of the citizens of Augusta. And that, the feedback I've gotten, people are like, nationally are like, that is what we need to see.
I agree. That was a special day in that, we could get that many former mayors together. As you mentioned, we don't always sit on the same political aisle, but to get together for such an important cause, this charter that we have today, put together, and people say in late 1995, enacted in 1996, certainly deserves a revisit. But any decisions made to not campaign on this should be made by the voters of Augusta, Richmond County. A lot of people say, well, if you get 8 votes on the Augusta, Richmond County Commission, you can make changes. I don't necessarily agree with that. I agree that the more you get voters engaged in the process, I think the better it will be, the better opportunity we have to get it right this time. So that's what I'm really excited about.
No, I agree completely. And this is, for me, this is a battle for democracy. And like a lot of others, are concerned. I think people don't understand how fragile a democracy is. And we've seen, some things that don't look really great for the future of America. I believe we'll come through this stronger as a nation. But to me, it's like I've told people that our government has a bad reputation for being very divisive. I mean, you rise above that. I tried to rise above that for 9 years. But I said that it's not the government that should represent a city or any nation. It's the people. Right. And so by giving the people of Augusta, 201,000 people, just the opportunity to vote on how they want to be governed is a beautiful thing. And I bet there are a lot of other cities in the nation that would like to have the opportunity that we're going to have on May 21st.
I think they would. When we look across the state of Georgia, there's a few other consolidated governments, notably Columbus, Muskogee, Athens, Clarke, and Macon-Bibb. Coincidentally, when they enacted their consolidation charters, they have what they call a charter review committee, to where they have a broad cross-section of the community that takes a look at their charter and whatever changes need to be made to make it more efficient or more effective, or to make sure that their governance is working properly. Coincidentally, Augusta, Richmond County, has not had that since our inception. So, my biggest drive towards having the mayor to have a vote is to get to a charter review committee. Let's take a look at our charter and see what works, what doesn't work. A lot of people believe strongly that we need to change the structure of the city administrator to a city manager role. I think that's very important, in that, we have a person that has all of the responsibility of the job, but has no authority and no autonomy to do the job. So I think there's a few things that we need to look at to make sure that we're moving Augusta forward for everybody, we're positioning our future for the young folks that want to live here and call Augusta home, that we're making sure that we're providing opportunities for them.
Well, when I first offered myself for public service, I had somebody tell me, well, you're never going to be successful in politics because you're too common sense. And I'm like, I think common sense should have a seat at the table every place. But that's what I share with people with regards to our charter. Yes. I'm like, okay, that is fundamentally the business plan for our city. And if you don't revisit your business plan in 28 years, you're not going to be around as a business for 28 years. I mean, you'll be out of business long before you get to 28 years.
You're exactly right. I love your analogy when you say common sense. I tell everybody that our government that we share, it should be people that share my and your ideas and values as it relates to politics. I tell people all the time, we shouldn't relegate our elected office to the politicians. We need everyday Americans running for these offices, people who run businesses, people who do a lot of other things, homemakers, people who just want to serve this community in a positive way, make change, and not have any ills towards how we not move Augusta forward. And less partisanship is better, especially at the local level. People who just want to roll their sleeves up and go to work.
Well, it's interesting. So, speaking at the National Governors Association, I said, you guys, for good reason, female and male governors in general, I said, I get that you can't really engage at the grassroots level because there are security issues. You can't, unless you're going to do an undercover boss, you can't go out and engage. Right. But I can, and these organizations can. That's right. And I'll give you a prime example. So for a Starts With Us on the Street video series, I went down to our farmers market for 5.5 hours and interviewed people about the divides in America. They pinned it on the media and on politics, but I had an older black gentleman say, look around, look at what you see here. We don't want to be divided. But that same gentleman shortly thereafter asked me, what is wrong with the Augusta Commission? Why do they not get it? And I said, well, I'll tell you my opinion. And this was, I think you had just been elected, but hadn't taken office yet. And I pumped you up and said, you'll see more grassroots engagement out of our next mayor, which we have. But I said, because commissioners are not here engaging at the grassroots level for 5.5 hours. A lot of them have, Saturday breakfasts where they serve a free breakfast. They probably get the same 20 people that tell them how great they are. Mm-hmm. And that does not give you a feel at all for what's going on at the grassroots level. Frankly, I think that's often the problem in Washington is that how much, interaction at the grassroots level does anybody, once you get in the Washington bubble, you lose that. But at the local level, we can do what you do regular. I see you in parades. I see you all over the place. That's the power of local government, is that you can actually engage at the local level.
I agree with you. It's always been intentional from my part to want to engage. It's who I am. I guess people tell me I'm a pretty good salesman. I believe in not only selling the products and services that I do for my company, but as mayor, I'm selling the city of Augusta. Not only to those who want to make economic investments here, or visit here, or consider in Augusta, but it's also selling optimism to the folks that live here, the young people, the people who call Augusta home. We want them to have a positive outlook as to the things that we're doing, not only from the mayor's office, but with the Augusta-Richmond County Commission from a city. So that's my job every single day, and I love every opportunity I get to be out in the public, selling the goodwill of Augusta, selling the great opportunities that we have, selling the idea that we're moving the city forward, that we're growing, and that we're working in their best interest.
It's interesting to me, and I speak on leadership regularly. This is about leadership, but part of good leadership to me is to create hope and optimism. And when you have, and I've shared this with commissioners when I was in office, you probably have too. I'm like, you're never going to sell a product saying that you have an inferior product. And if you're just saying what's wrong with the city continually, you're basically saying that we have an inferior product. That is not the way to do economic development. You need to know the strengths of the product that you're selling.
You're exactly right. And, we're fortunate geographically in Augusta. It's a great community. We have a lot of great opportunities. I tell everybody we're based on the 4 M's. Of course, you have medicine, you have manufacturing, you have the military, and you have the masters. That is a great, strong foundation to grow upon. And we got some great neighbors to our west out in Columbia County, and to our south down in Burke County, and to our north, we're of course anchored by the state of South Carolina and North Augusta and Aiken County. So it takes a region to really make things happen for people to want to live here and want to call this area home. And we're just proud that Augusta is anchored to all of that.
Well, and that's to me is that, good leadership, you set the tone, right? And so and I would say this when we went through the Great Recession, I said I viewed it as being flying on a plane, right? So if I'm on a plane and we hit turbulence and the flight attendant is calm, I stay calm. If I see the flight attendant, we hit turbulence and they're nervous, it makes me nervous. So for the entire recession, I'm like, I've got to stay cool, calm, and collected, because if I start freaking out, my citizens are going to freak out. But you are so good at that, maintaining your composure, which I think is a huge, you instill confidence in our citizens. And I hear it, people tell me on the street what a great job they feel like you're doing, but leadership matters.
It matters. Civility matters. I believe that this role that I'm entrusted to, it's important for me to show that there is the ability for us to work together. Of course, are we going to agree on every single thing? No, we're not. But that doesn't mean we have to have a knockdown, drag out fight on every single thing, because I think ultimately everyone that's elected to this role should be working for the same mission, as to make our city better. And that's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to work with everybody where I can, and to help show that there's opportunities for those who want to live, work, and play and call Augusta home. And that's my goal, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Well, so I spoke at a leadership forum at Georgia College recently. And so it was probably 100 students, 90% of whom were female, which I thought was interesting. But the next day, the director of the leadership program said, you know what, I guarantee you a number of those students will run for office because you asked them to last night. But to me, and you and I are around the same age, growing up politically, Democrat and Republican, there were statesmen that we could, on both sides of the aisle, that you could look up to. And now I'm like, for these young people in leadership programs who are interested in public service, where are the people that they want to emulate? And I think you are providing that for the young people of Augusta.
Well, I would hope so, and that you're right. There used to be a time, and everybody in Augusta has this conversation. When you needed something done, there was 3 or 4, maybe 5 people that you could call to get it done. Now, when you ask that question, who do you call to get anything done? There's a lot of question marks as to who you call. I believe firmly that those leaders are still out there. Right now, we just happen to be in a position politically to where there's certainly some challenges, especially as it relates to partisanship. Our delegation, of course, is a mixed delegation now, both Republicans and Democrats, in Atlanta. But as I continue to reiterate, my goal is to sell Augusta regardless of which party you align with. I believe strongly that it certainly benefits this region to have a leader or leaders that are more interested in growing the city than partisan politics. And that's where I am.
Well, and I think at the national level, it's very unfortunate. We've incentivized bad behavior. So you have, the extremes on both sides. You have people in Washington that do something outlandish that you probably wouldn't want either of your daughters to do. Mm-hmm. And then they send out fundraising emails. And it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like, okay, every time your kid throws a tantrum, you're not just going to say, not just going to look the other way. You're going to be like, hey, let's give you some more sugar or some more Cokes so that you'll just be more process more bad behavior. And I'm like, that's messed up.
It is. Politics is a mean business. I learned that in Washington last week, week before last at the State of the Union. It's a mean, cruel business, and you certainly have to have a thick skin to be in it, especially at the national level in Washington and also at the state level. As I mentioned, I'm just glad I get to stay out of all of that and concentrate on making Augusta better for those who want to live here. And we don't mind mixing it up every once in a while when we have to for the sake of Augusta. Certainly don't mind doing that, but just know that as far as my leadership style, I believe in that there's a lot of opportunities here for us, and my job is to go out and seek those opportunities and bring them home for everyone who wants to live, not only in Augusta, but in this region.
No, well, Garnett, I will tell you, when you first were talking about running, and I very much encouraged you, but I supported you from day one. But I said, and I think in politics, all too often, there's transactional leadership, right? I scratch your back, you scratch mine, blah, blah, blah. But I told you, and I still feel this way, and you've done exactly what I had hoped. I said, you don't owe me anything. All I want is to have a mayor that I can be proud of. Yeah. And you are a mayor that I can be proud of, that I can promote to a national audience through this. But we need to incentivize good behavior and statesmanlike. So I try to feature that on this, and politically, you are exactly what I think the majority of Americans are looking for in an elected leader.
Oh, that's special because I decided to run this race because of your recommendation. As you know, you and I had a conversation early on. I had no ambition of running for political office. I love business. I love being an entrepreneur. It's something I never imagined doing, but also the salesman in me, the competitiveness in me makes me want to always accomplish things I never dreamed of accomplishing. So when we decided to get in the race to become the 85th mayor for the city of Augusta, we were all in. And we just wanted to sell this idea about positive growth and movement and opportunities for just the everyday American, the everyday Augustan. I tell everybody that, and I don't say it probably loud enough, I am the American dream. I'm this young, poor black kid that grew up with nothing, that the Lord has provided me the opportunity to do something special, and we're not going to take it for granted. We're going to continue to move this community forward. We're going to continue serving in the right way, operating with the highest level of integrity and honor, to represent the people of Augusta, represent my family, represent my church family, and that's who we are every day, and we're never going to change that. We have this value set that we are who we are, and we're not changing for anybody. We're not going to Hollywood, and that's who you see today is who you will always see with Garnett Johnson.
Well, man, if these mics were able to be dropped, I think you can drop the mic on that statement. But man, well, so as we get towards the end here, and I just, once again, for local people, remember to go out and vote yes on May 21st to really, I believe that we can create a case study here that you and I can take to other cities and communities nationwide, because this is what people want to see. But as we get towards then, where can people find Mayor Garnett Johnson?
I'm always easily accessible, of course. You can find me down at 535 Telfair Street at the beautiful, what they call the Marble Palace locally, the Augusta Municipal Government Complex. You can reach me on social media at Mayor Johnson. I think it's the 85th mayor. You could, we're on all platforms of social media via email, phone call. Every third Friday, we have a great event in South Richmond County called the Family Food Truck Friday. I'm always there. Call me, text me, visit me. We have an open door policy and always have and always will. And really appreciate being the 85th mayor. It's the best job I never imagined having. And I love hearing feedback, whether positive or negative.
Yep.
Let me know how I'm doing, and that's who we are.
Well, as this is the last question that I always ask everybody on a daily basis, what puts a smile on your face and brings joy to your heart?
Every day knowing that I'm able to make a difference for those who live here, who want to live here, providing an opportunity for those who think that they cannot be a part of this great democracy that we share. Because not everybody understands that. They think always that I could never be mayor, I could never be senator because I'm not born to that pedigree. I'm not born in those circles. I like to dispel that notion by being the man that was able to overcome all of the obstacles in life through prayer, through a great family. My mother and my father instilled some great values in me. My wife, Tony, keeps me rooted and grounded, and my daughters, I try to provide an inspiration for them, but often they provide for me, and that all we try to do is just always do our best. And one thing that I've always noticed in myself is that I'm never satisfied with anything. Yeah. I'm always challenging myself to do other things and to stay uncomfortable, to better myself. So that's one thing I'm prideful of, and that I just want to see continued progress.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, thank you for being a great mayor. And I'll tell you, surviving cancer last year, some people want to tear down the institutions of the media or government. Mm. You're never going to do that. And so every day I pray, Lord, I pray for you. I pray for all our government officials. I pray for the media. And I'm like, show me how I can help. Mm. And so you asking me to chair this campaign for this ballot initiative is a manifestation of those prayers.
Yes.
So I want to say thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for being a great mayor, and thank you for being a great guest, and onward to victory, man.
Onward to victory. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I always appreciate your friendship and your leadership.
That's all the time we got. We are dropping the mic, and we are out. Hey guys, thanks for listening to or watching the Changemaker podcast today. Greatly appreciate it. If you're listening and you want to see the video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Deke Copenhaver. That's a pretty easy to remember, I would think. But really, we also want to remind you to like, subscribe, rate across all platforms, download. And if you're looking for a coach, a speaker, or anything, you know where to find me. Just email me at me@dekecopenhaver.com. And thanks so much for listening.